Hello there, this is episode 12 of the Sunday Lockdown Special on a REVS special. Today is an interesting one. We have another YouTuber today. It's going to be awesome. Quick one to get things out of the way. I know today's Father's Day. I've had a couple of bottles of beer, as it were. My father's no longer with us, so today this is my little commemoration to my father. He never saw this channel being around, but you know what? It's great being this channel here, seeing all you guys here. So I'm going to introduce to you JaseWilks. He runs a YouTube channel of his own. Some good content, go check it out. Without further ado, I'm going to bring him up on screen right now. And Jace, there you go, mate. You are on screen. I've minimised myself down to the little corner. We've given you, seeing as you've got a garage and so much good stuff behind you, we've given you full picture. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Oh, it's good to see I'm not the only one drinking.
Well, I was just hiding it, to be fair. No, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on the channel. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Max. And I need to thank a few of the people in the comments for suggesting it. So, yeah.
Well, indeed, this is exactly how this happened. It was a couple of weeks ago. Episode 10 was going to be the last one. And I was like, listen, guys, this is the last one. And I think it was Nate. A couple of you guys were like, JaseWilks, get on there. So a lot of people here must be subscribers to your channel. If they're not, go check out the content that he's got, because there's a lot of stuff you've got out there, not just Cayman content, but you know, it's awesome stuff. So, and it's great to see another guy from the UK, because we're underrepresented here, mate.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's a funny story. I mean, obviously, for anybody that doesn't know, I started a YouTube channel called JaseWilks. I know my imagination was fantastic there. I do apologise for that. I do plan on changing it at some point, but genuinely I just don't know where I'm going to go with it. But yeah, no, I started my YouTube channel over a year ago, and I knew I wanted to do it for so many years, as daft as it sounds. But I wanted to do a YouTube channel years and years ago, and that's ultimately where this big workshop comes into play. It's a long story, but buying the house and everything else was a complicated process. I moved out, moved back in, rented it out. There was a lot of processes through it. But ultimately, I wanted to build a YouTube channel about 10, 15 years ago, I would say. I just didn't know which way I wanted to go with it. So about 12, 13 months ago, I started a YouTube channel on my original account, rebuilding my house because it was falling to bits. And I soon realised that it was not the direction I wanted to go. So ultimately, I stopped everything. I stopped everything in my tracks, and I sort of had a thought about which way I wanted to go with it. And ultimately, that's where, you know, working on the BMW and you know, and everything else came into play. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a good roller coaster. It's been hard work, but it's been fun at the same time. So yeah, it's ultimately led me to working on a Porsche Cayman. So I mean, just to explain, I do genuinely love Porsches. So for anybody watching that thinking I'm a bit of a knob for doing, sorry, mind my French, for doing what I'm doing, it's a decision that I made. You know, there was a lot riding on it ultimately, and money was a big factor to it. It was the repair costs for a Porsche to replacing the engine for something else completely. And you know, when I weighed those costs up, you know, as much as there's going to be more headache and more to do putting this other engine in, it was a decision that I decided to make. So I genuinely do love Porsches. It's just something that I did. So I do apologise.
You know what? I think we've got a lot in common, because like my first kind of performance car was a BMW, and I know you've had a BMW in the past as well. Is that right?
Well, it was a diesel. It was a 330 diesel. But I tell you what, those diesels they're a quick car. Okay. They really are a quick car. So it was the LCI as well. It was the LCI automatic. So it has the paddle shift in it. And I tell you what, that thing after remapping was an ultimate weapon. It was a bit heavy, but yeah, it was a good weapon. I'm not going to lie. I do like my BMWs, definitely. Probably. That would have been my second. The first I had was a TI, a 318 Ti, an old shape. It was beautiful. But my car history, quite honestly, I've been Japanese you know, growing up. So ever since growing up, you know, to explain everything, it's obviously working on cars and everything else. I've taken a lot from my dad. We used to work on motorbikes, we used to work on cars together, boats, everything else. Whatever there was we could work on, we worked on it. So from a young age, I knew that Honda was the best reliable manufacturer to go with. And there was a lot of Hondas as a young kid. There was a lot of Hondas there ultimately that I enjoy driving. So I have had around about 7 Hondas right through my driving history.
Like sort of family type cars, or like something like S2000s.
Well, it started off with a little Civic, a little bug-eyed Civic. It was a 1.4 Hawaiian, I think it was. In like a gunmetal purple. It was beautiful, and I completely max powered it. It literally looked.
By the
like
way, so I've got to stop you. For the UK people that don't know, when I was a teenager, I read Max Power. It was a UK magazine where people basically got kind of low powered family like hatchbacks, but they spent almost the same amount of money on the purchase price of the car, on the sound system, the wheels, and they modded the cars. Like, I grew up reading Max Power, I'll tell you.
To be honest with you, I sort of look back at Max Power and think that's what started. Well, I'm not saying it started, because modifying's been going many years, but Max Power was a big drive, or a big influence to a lot of people, especially at a young age at that time, to start modifying the cars. But yeah, my Civic looked like it had been driven through a Halford shop window. It was quite ridiculous. I had PlayStations in it and everything. I sold that for. I genuinely lost so much money on it. It was ridiculous, and that was when I made the decision that I wasn't going to do that again to a car, because it just didn't make any financial sense. So I bought a Civic VTI, a 1.8 5-door Civic VTI. It was the whole. I don't want to say granddad's car, but it was the granddad's car that ultimately was so fast. I went from that to a CRX, a little convertible CRX. And then I stepped it up to the Honda Accord Type R, the 2.2 VTEC, and that was a beautiful machine. So no, I'm not going to lie. I've wanted a Cayman since I was in year 9 of school. I think it was year 9.
Wow. So what is that for our international audiences? Is that like secondary school?
Let's put it this way. So my love for a Porsche is I don't genuinely know how long I've loved them, but the main one for me was Will Smith's air-cooled Porsche in Bad Boys.
Oh, yes.
That was the car. That was what did it. It was...
He just goes,
It was seeing that car driving down the road. I was like, that is it. Porsches are for me. Yeah. They are the most beautiful... And they're a timeless design. People complain about that they don't change the design, but I always say it. Why fix something when it's not broken, type thing. So yeah, it was the Will Smith Porsche out of Bad Boys that did it. But when the Cayman was launched, obviously having a knowledge of cars and a background of cars and this, that, and the other, me and my dad always used to have an argument about, or not an argument, but we always used to, get into a bit of a to-do with regards to what's a better car. And I always used to say that the Cayman was the better car. And my argument, year 9, year 10, or whatever I was in school, I always said that it was the mid-engine setup that was the better. Wow. That made the Cayman a better car. And it was like they're underpowered. And I'm like, yeah, but obviously 911s are more power. They've got more power because they're the flagship vehicle of Porsche. Yeah. The car launch a mid-engine car and give it more power than a 911 because it's going to absolutely destroy it. That was my philosophy. That was my outlook on a Porsche. And a Porsche. You
were a very smart kid as a youngster, because it's when they made the 918 Spider, where did they put the engine? Simple as that.
Exactly. I mean, Porsche. There's no doubt about it. Porsche are fantastic engineers. That is basically it. And I genuinely don't know what made them leave the engine in the rear. That was obviously from the Beetle, because the guy who designed the Porsche guy, he originally designed the Beetle for the World War. I do believe. I could be wrong on that. I'm probably going to get slayed in the comments.
Well, that's why it's called the Volkswagen. It's the people's car. Like Volks is.
So the design. So Porsche, the Mr. Porsche basically designed the Beetle. So that was the part of it, I think, or the vice versa. So ultimately, I am assuming that the design ultimately came from that, and they left the engine in the back, and they've managed to, I'm going to say, absolutely master the positioning of an engine. But ultimately, it's still in the wrong place. I still believe the mid-engine setup is the right way to go. So ultimately, that's where I am. That's why I've got a Cayman. It's not my fair.
Can we roll it back a little bit? Because I know we had a quick warm-up chat before we came on stream. That is not your first Cayman, is it? So can you maybe talk us about the first Cayman that you got?
Right. So if I'll roll it back a little bit more. I hope I ain't boring anybody. So I'll roll it back a little bit further. The fact that I've always had a love for owning a Porsche, and I never knew how I was ever going to own one, but I always had this thing about owning one. My dad went through a midlife crisis, and he was sat in the living room one day, and he was looking at Aston Martins on Auto Trader. And it just so happened that I was looking at Aston Martins in Leeds, because I knew he could get to Leeds. It's an hour away from where we live. So I was like, he was honestly, he was out the door. He was picking up his keys to go out the door to look at an Aston Martin, and I stopped in his tracks, and I was like, but what have you considered a 911?
Oh, wow.
And he was like, well, yeah, I have, but Aston's and this, that, and the other. So anyway, we jumped in the car and we went to Aston Martin and we went to Porsche. And we stayed at Porsche, and there was an 06 911 Carrera 4S, absolutely pristine condition. It was the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. And I say he bought it there and then. He obviously had to bring his car back and get a deal and trade his other car in and this and the other. But that's where the real love started, because I managed to convince my dad to buy one, and that's when I actually got to drive one, if that makes sense. So rolling it forward a few years, I managed to save up my life savings. I got a loan, and I found a Porsche Cayman S. Was it an 06 plate? Is it an 06? I think it was a 57 plate. A 57 plate Cayman S. Had all the bells and whistles on, turbo wheels. It looked the absolute nuts. I wish I had a picture for it, but I wish I had a picture of it. But genuinely, I didn't have it long enough to take good enough pictures. Although I did get a few, but I'll explain that. So I bought this Cayman 3 weeks before I was going to the Nürburgring for a stag do for one of my best friend's wedding. He was basically getting married a few months later, and we all being petrol heads. They all had beautiful cars. We aimed to go to the Nürburgring in all our cars, and I was like, I am not doing this in somebody else's. I'm not doing this as a passenger. I am doing this in my own car, in my dream car. So ultimately, it was, I need to find a Porsche quick. So I had to get a loan to top up the car that I bought, and I bought this car from Sheffield. I'm not joking. I picked it up. Bearing in mind, I picked it up and it looked absolutely pristine. There was no complaints. It run beautifully. It looked beautiful. There was a few little nigglies that I wanted sorting out, and he agreed to sorting them out. So I left it at that. I paid him the cash and I disappeared. I shot home. I got home and I ended up making an A4 list of a list long as A4 or an A4 sheet of problems that I wanted right, if that made sense, because it was down to like under trays not being bolted in properly, but all the bolts were missing. So it wasn't like I could just, I would have been spending hundreds going to Porsche and buying all these stupid daft little bits. And I was thinking to myself, do I be not an arsehole customer, because I didn't want to be that person? But ultimately, he said that he was going to be right. It was even down to like the covers on the back. Do you know the separation cover that goes into the boot? Oh, yeah. So do you know which one I mean? That bolts to the boot lid.
Yeah.
That was missing, and he said he'll get it sorted, and it just took forever. Anyway, this list of problems got addressed on the second visit, or should I say, returned the car. The list of problems started getting addressed, but the issue is that they couldn't address the majority of them before I was going to the Nürburgring. So it was a case of fix what they could and then leave it until after the Nürburgring. So I picked the car up, I drove it back to work, or should I say I started driving back to work. I got on the motorway basically, and the oil light came on. It came on about 5 miles away from work. So I stopped to pull over. I pulled over and I couldn't see any physical oil dripping. I couldn't see anything, there was nothing there, if that made sense. It didn't make sense at the time because of the oil light coming on, but at the same time I was like, fair enough. So I drove to work, and the oil, and I in the Porsches you get a warning light system, so I think it gets like the yellow warning light and then the red warning light.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
You get like a service light, and it's like a yellow and then a red. I mean, the comments could correct me, but ultimately it came up with a red warning light, and I parked up at work, and luckily for me, the lads that I worked with, who was going to the Nürburgring and everything else, we got the car up on the lift, and straight away we noticed that they had put the bung in, but they'd not replaced the washer, so the crush washer was damaged, but it was tight, but it wasn't tight, and basically
I don't know where the oil came from, but there was no oil in the car. So that was the start of my issue, because ultimately what happened is I made the phone call back to the garage, and I said that this had happened. They said, go and get the oil. We'll refund you for the oil. Go on your trip, and then obviously when the car comes back, we'll take a look at everything. So I got the oil. I think the oil was, I was like 170 quid in with the oil or something daft like that, because it was like all my oil.
There was nothing there, jeez.
There was no oil. And then I needed the night, or the 2 nights before we was going, my front lower control arms gave way on one side, so I replaced both of them the night before.
Do you mind me asking? When you say it gave way, like, what happened?
Well, it was. What it was, as daft as it sounds, because I could hear a clunk or I could hear something, and what it was is this was one of the problems that I didn't address on the first visit. So he said he'll have a look at it when I get back. But me thinking I'm going to the airbag ring, I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. So it was when I pulled it up at work that I noticed the knock. Do you know when I had the oil leak? So I noticed the knock when I pulled it up. Didn't think anything of it because of the oil leak situation. And it was when we had it up on the lift, my friend started basically just moving wheels and bits and pieces, and the movement in my control arm in the bottom ball joint was so ridiculous. It was like, you can't leave it like that. Wow. So we ended up having to replace the control arms. That was another 350 quid or something daft like that. At this point, I'm not even joking. I was about 700-800 quid in, and I'd only had the car about a week and a half or something stupid. It was crazy.
Sorry to interrupt you. We just had one question come in. How many miles had the car done when you bought it?
Oh, right. So on the mileometer, on the odometer, I think it was 76,000. I think it was 76. It could have been more. Quite honestly, the ownership of that car was a bit of a blur because of everything that was going on.
The reason why I think that question's got a bit of bearing, my car's done 54,000 miles, and I think my front steering is not as sharp as it used to be, and a couple of garages have said that it's actually my front lower control arms that could be gone, and it's actually the rubber kind of the gasket and the bearings. And I said to someone, can I just change out the rubber bushes or something? And they go, well, you can do that, like Powerflex make these bushes, but then they go, the ball joint can still pop out the socket. So they go, it's false economy just to change the bushings. You should change the whole thing.
Yeah. So I've, to be honest with you, I did all this on the BMW, and I've had a lot of questions on regards to the suspension. And I will always stand by this. Is ultimately, it's fair enough changing your bushings. You can change your bushings all day long, but don't change just one, if that makes sense, or two. So if you want to change like one of your bushings on your rear control arms or on both sides, make sure that you're changing everything, because if you change just one, then ultimately the stiffness in that Powerflex bush will weaken that other bushing that hasn't been changed, or the ball joint more than likely, a hell of a lot quicker than it would normally, because the stiffness of that bush. So if you're going to do it, you've got to do it all, and that's the point. And I must admit, I've got a bit of an issue with this now, where I'm looking at, because the Audi setup.
But that's not the same car that we're talking about at the moment, is it?
No, it's not. Okay. It's not. Sorry, I'm absolutely skipping. No. I've got so many things I can talk about. It's sorry, I do apologise. Yeah. So quickly to go back to the Porsche, basically, it went to the airbag ring. We took it to the airbag ring. We went on a road trip from the UK to. We drove straight to the airbag ring on this trip, and then we went from the airbag ring to Paris. We drove around Paris, stayed in Paris for the evening, and obviously made our way back. It was genuinely the most splendid, the most fantastic time that I've ever had in a car. Even though my car wasn't correct, and I'm probably just going to get to this, because ultimately we went to the airbag ring to go and take my car on. Well, our cars are on the track. I was with, to explain, the guys that I went with, the chaps that Stag Do that it was, owns the company that I used to work for, a garage equipment company. The lift that actually, the chaps that supply me this lift that's behind me, they've lent me it because obviously the friends and everything else. So the chaps that I went with had midlife crises at the same time, I think, and ultimately went out and bought. A deal fell through with the business, and obviously with the way that everything's gone over the last few years, they went out and splurged on 2 Lamborghini Huracans, a bright green one and a bright green one and a gunmetal grey one. Absolutely beautiful. So they took these 2 to the airbag ring. I took my Porsche, and there was another car with us. There was another Porsche with me, a classic 911, beautiful car. So we genuinely set off. It was all planned. Nürburgring was planned. We had tickets sort of not booked because you can't book, but ultimately, it was all set in stone, ready to go. The one thing that we didn't take into consideration was the weather. So what happened was when we got to the Nürburgring, we paid to stay in hotels and everything else for the day. So we basically wasted a day at the Nürburgring, even though it was fantastic just being there. The rain the previous day halted the practice session that was happening that day. So they ended up, because racing and practice and everything else takes priority over people just bringing the cars, the practice session got moved. From what we got told, it got moved to the day after. So ultimately, the full day was out of, well, they said you could wait, but there was a chance that we potentially couldn't get on the track. So we went over to the Nürburgring. We a massive stag do, as you can imagine. It wasn't cheap, and we couldn't even get on the Nürburgring. So yeah, I took that car to the Nürburgring, and it didn't go around. It came back with stickers on it, because obviously being a stag do, it went with all bells and whistles. It looked absolutely fantastic, to be honest. It really did. It genuinely, as much as it had these oil issues and it was smoking and there was issues, and I'm not going to lie to anybody, I drove that car knowing that there was potential issues. But I drove that off the OK from the garage that sold me the car, because it was like, take it. I didn't want to. I asked him if he could give me another car so I could take that, so at least it wasn't a wasted trip. He said, take it, it'll be absolutely fine. And it was. It genuinely was fine. There was no problems with it. I got it back, and there was these so the control arms that I changed before I went to the Nürburgring, I had to get the car retracked. The car tracked up, but it wasn't perfect. And it was at this point, obviously I had the engine issues as well, but it was at this point I knew there was a huge issue with my car. So I put the control arms on, and I basically took it to a professional geometry shop. So you had a Hunter wheel alignment system. I don't know if you know brands of garage equipment, but basically a Hunter wheel alignment system is probably one of the best in the game. It's so precise. And I had it on one of these machines, and genuinely we couldn't get the geometry correct to how the car should have been, if that made sense. We was having to make huge alterations to the geometry to make the car drive straight. And the only thing that led us to was ultimately the car being bent. We couldn't find anything else. There was nothing else. That I had a professional mechanic, because it was at that point, as much as I do these YouTube videos and work on my car, I'm not a professional. So I just obviously need to get out there. I genuinely took it to a professional because I was at a complete loss. And he said that he couldn't work it out. He couldn't get the geometry straight. He could correct it, but it wasn't right. It was having to make such an alteration to correct it. And it was at that point that I knew there was more going on with this car. It was at that point I did more digging, and I found my car. I found a listing for my car with silver wheels on. So before they painted the wheels, and it was being sold with an engine issue, so it had been rebought.
Oh, no way!
Yeah.
But obviously, this was when it was sold to you on the listing. None of this was advertised.
Nothing wrong with it.
So what happened? So did you go back to the dealership you bought it from?
So now because I didn't want to get into an altercation about. Basically, I knew that there was an issue with the car. I felt there was an issue with the car. As soon as I bought it, I started. That's hence why I wrote an A4 list. I knew there was an issue with the car. So ultimately, when I found that we couldn't get the geometry straight, and then I found the listing for the car previously, I knew if I went back with the argument, they'd probably tell me to F off and no, I genuinely didn't want to get into an altercation with them. So I was already in talks with him about potentially bringing the car back because he couldn't, because of the engine issue. Bearing in mind that it drained all its oil, and there was smoking and this, that, and the other. And every time I started it, it was plumes of smoke. It wasn't good. So I was already in talks about getting the car back. It was at the point that I found the geometry issue, because bearing in mind, in the back of my head, I thought that they wasn't just going to give me my money back because I had this potential engine issue. He could say that I did the damage, but because obviously the drain plug and everything else, there was no real argument. But in my head, I was worried that he wouldn't give me the money back. So this is where my original Cayman S was going to get an engine swap, because I already looked into it back then, and I knew I couldn't afford to spend, I think it was about £7,500 I got quoted to send my engine off for it to be rebuilt. So I couldn't afford that at that point. So that's when I started thinking about the engine swap. Luckily for me, they genuinely took the car back. No arguments, no questions, and I got every single penny back.
Wow, are you serious? That's really impressive to hear.
It's insane, but I think I don't want to put a damper on the story, but I feel like they felt guilty. They knew there was an issue with the car, and that's ultimately why I got the money back.
So you have to be a serious Cayman diehard to have purchased the Cayman, have experienced the fact that it can have issues, engine issues, control arm issues. But there's another Cayman we can see in the background.
Absolutely.
So you came back for more.
Yeah. So this one, I mean, before. So to explain, that Cayman went back. At that point, it was a really, really strange time. So the Cayman went back, and my dad, before the Cayman went back, I was having all these issues, and I was trying to get them sorted out for the garage. It kept on going back to Sheffield. I was having to get trains and this, that, and the other. It was a pain. But what had happened in the process of all of this going on, my dad ended up going to hospital, and he had a really, really serious bowel issue. It was perforated bowel. He had peritonitis and this, that. He was basically on his deathbed. He was near enough dead. And that's not to because genuinely he's absolutely fine now. He's all singing, all dancing. He's brilliant. He's absolutely fantastic. But it was at this point that I then made the decision not to go and pursue another Porsche. I basically left the job that I tried to get into sales, into this garage equipment company that supplied me this lift. I was working there for 2 years when my dad got ill, and it was at that point that I made the decision that I was going to leave the company that I was working for and go and help the company that my dad had started ultimately, and he sells kitchens. So I went from selling garage equipment to selling kitchens. The Porsche wasn't the ideal car to go and sell kitchens in, so that's where I scrapped that idea, and the BMW came about. So I bought the BMW. And that turned out that I bought that one stupidly because I was in such a rush to buy it. That was crash damaged as well, but I didn't know. So that's where the whole YouTube thing came about, because obviously I'd already started, bearing in mind doing the videos and everything with the Porsche, all the processes that had been going through with the Porsche. While I was doing all of that, I was making videos on my house. So when the Porsche went back and everything that was going on with my dad, it was at that point that I thought, I don't need to be working on my house. I don't enjoy working on my house. I don't enjoy making videos about my house. I'm going to start making videos in my garage. And that's where the Porsche went back. As much as I wanted to work on the Porsche on the channel, that didn't work out because it went back too soon. So the BMW ultimately took its place. So
I tell you what, seeing as you love your garage so much, there's a few comments here. You've got a motorbike over there. You've got a Mercedes cap on your baseball cap, and there's a Cayman over there. So how many in terms of your motorsport kind of stuff, are you into biking? Is that your bike over there as well?
Yes. So I had a scooter. I had a scooter when I was a young kid. I've always had a love for bikes. I thought I'd grow out of it. Do you know? I think when you're a young kid, you want to have two wheels. You want to be on your ped and you want to be bombing about with your mates and everything else. And that's basically what it was. I thought I was going to grow out of it, and I didn't. It sounds really corny, but the freedom of being on two wheels is. You can't compare it. You cannot compare.
Can I ask you a question though, Jace? Because it's like getting behind a sports car, I feel like I'm safe. I feel that on a bike, because you're part of the bike and how you lean and control, I just think I'd kill myself on a bike. So I work with so many people. They got metal pins in their fingers or thumbs, their knees, because it's not just you as a biker. Other drivers, they never see you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, you're completely right. I mean. I'm not going to sit here and preach and say car drivers are the problem, because they're not. They are the issue, but they're not all of the issue. Bikers, I'm not going to say that I drive around at 30, 40 mile an hour on my super bike. I don't. The one buzz I get off this is being able to do the speeds I can. Now, with regards to being, safe and everything else, I get it. I go out on that. I put my full levers on. I have my helmet on and everything else. But it's not going to save me. It's not going to save me if I come off at 120, 130 mile an hour. But it's a strange feeling, because it's when you're in a car and you're doing 100 mile an hour, you feel it. You're doing it. You've got to stop. You're aware of everything. When you're on the bike, you're obviously aware of everything, but the speed is. It's really hard to explain, but you can't you can't compare a car speed to a bike speed, because on a bike you could be doing 120 mile an hour and you could feel like you're doing 30. It sounds stupid.
Oh really? I thought it'd be the other way around.
You can be going really quick, and you don't feel like you're going really quick. You're more aware. It's really daft, but like even on my superbike, I'm not that high up, but because I'm higher than most roofs, I can see everything. My vision is just brilliant, so you can see everything that's going on around you. I feel very in control on my bike. The only time I don't feel in control is when it's wet, and that's the most dangerous time. But that's just because of the tires and everything else. But yeah,
actually speaking of tires,
I love that thing. I absolutely love that.
I've just noticed that your Cayman doesn't have a wheel on the back, does it?
No, it doesn't. No. I tell you what, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. So there's one of my wheels.
Oh wow, there you go.
So you probably just have to ignore that. I'm just going to explain that since starting the YouTube channel, all my friends seem to think I'm some sort of super mechanic, and they think that I can repair stuff. I've got a Chinese quad in there that's brand spanking new, and it doesn't work. I've broke it 6 times trying to fix it. So, and that's not me breaking it. It's like things that are just not right. So I've drilled out shafts and re-tapped holes, and it's just an absolute nightmare. So. Yeah, so the Porsche, I'm basically giving you all.
Oh my god! Like this is crazy. So for those that don't know, when I heard that Jace was featuring on this channel, he's put some videos up already. I mean, maybe you could talk about these. He literally said he's thinking of putting an Audi V8 engine into his Cayman, and I know you guys in the US, you'll put like an LSD engine, the V8 or something. In the UK, this is something new for the UK. So you have been busy there, my man. So tell us what you've been doing there.
Well, to be honest, I'm just going to say now, and I don't, obviously, I would appreciate anybody subscribing to my channel at this point. I really would. I don't know if anybody has been following the progress, but anybody that has, you're all going to get a sneak peek into what I've been doing, because it's all been off camera at this point, because everything, I've had such a delay on getting everything sorted. So it's been a nightmare. I haven't uploaded for 2 weeks. I do apologise to anybody for that. But I bought myself a little bender. I bought myself some tube, and don't laugh at me, but these are my attempts at bending some tubing up. Now, I'll get onto that in a minute, but I have now, if anybody has been watching, I have now bought myself a clutch, and I bought myself the flywheel. Wow. So that was supplied by a company in Ipswich called TTV Racing. A chap called Aaron Fisher. He might actually watch your channel, but he recommended them. The guy from the States recommended a company in the UK. As mad as it sounds, but that's how that came about.
That's impressive. Yeah. So just to let you know, there's a couple of guys on the comments right now going, yes, they're subscribers to your channel. So I think they know about you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I've got the clutch, I've got the flywheel. Weirdly enough, look, LUK don't supply the bolts for the clutches. So I've got to potentially supply my own bolts.
Do you mind me walking you back a little bit? So you purchased this Cayman, and then you decided, I'm just going to take it to bits, and just new clutch, new engine?
Right.
What was it?
Right. So the story of the Cayman, basically, because I wasn't, as much as I wanted another one, you've got to bear in mind that all of these nightmare stories, like you say, a bit of a die-hard Porsche. I am a die-hard Porsche fan. I love Porsches. But buying another one was so difficult for me to do. So what happened was the BMW was nearing completion, and I put some money back in the bank. So I was at that point. Sorry, I'm just going to sit back down while we talk about this.
Yeah, go for it,
I was at that point. I was like, I'm going to get a track car. Now, obviously, I don't know if anybody's been watching the channel or if anybody's been watching it before the Porsche content, but I did my BMW, and the reason I did it because it was crash damaged and everything. Oh, sorry, wait there. Oh, I do apologise. I'm just typing in my PIN code for my phone. Okay, so my computer. So I don't know.
There we go.
Sorry, I do apologise. So basically, what happened was I did all the work on the BMW, and I took it on track. And the money that I spent on the BMW, and as much as it was a 10-year-old car at the time, I didn't want to destroy it. It was a beautiful, beautiful example of a BMW 330D. It had been messed with. It was faster. It smoked a little bit because of the work that I'd done on the tuning and everything else. But it was an absolutely beautiful, beautiful car. And when I took it to Cardwell and took it on a track day, and I genuinely hammered the nuts off it, it was so quick. But it was at that point that I thought, do I really want to beat a car up like this? I mean, it's a 10-year-old car. You know, I appreciate it's if it wasn't the car it was, and it wasn't being used for what it was, I may have had a different outlook. But it was like, do I really want to destroy this car? So it was when I got some money back in the bank, and I started looking for a track car. And I found a Honda S. Bearing in mind I'm a Honda boy, I found a Honda S2000. Being stripped down, it had a roll cage put in it, and he had was it Buddy Club? It was a make. I'm sure it was Buddy Club. I could be wrong on that one, but or Mugen. He basically had everything to bolt onto this car to make it a track car. Everything. But what he'd done is he'd listed the car and then listed everything separately. And he had best offers on everything. So I went in and I calculated what he'd listed it for at the price he had, and then the best offers and everything else. And I sort of offered him a decent amount, and he refused me. And I left it, and I thought he's gonna reconsider this. He's definitely gonna reconsider. So I left it about a week, and he didn't get back to me. And I messaged him again in desperation. I was like, "Look, are you gonna take me off?" And he was like, "No." He said it's too low. So I was like, "Fine." And I am not even joking. I came off of that message, and this Cayman was listed. It wasn't. Bearing in mind, it wasn't listed in Porsche cars. It was listed in projects. So this Porsche Cayman was listed, and it was $5,000 at the time. And I was like,
is that a base or a sport, by the way?
Sorry?
Is that a base or a sport Cayman?
It's a sport, so it's the S. So it's a 3.4. Now it's got PCM. It's got the leather interior. I'll unplug you. So it's got.
So I'm waiting for the catch at £5,000.
Right. Yeah. So basically, it was listed at $5,000. Now it was bidding. I don't know if you can see all that, guys. It's really dark. I've got blue leather interior. I've got PCM. I've got heated leather seats. There's Cayman S wheels. It hasn't got the chrono pack on it. It hasn't got PASM suspension. It hasn't got all of the electronics on. But quite honestly, there was a reason for that, and there was a reason why I bought it. Was ultimately I didn't want all those complications. I had the PASM on the black one, and I had a suspension issue, and this was before the car went. This was a complaint that I had, and I think the strut, like the replacement was like 500, 600 quid or something. I was like, I don't want to spend that. So this one doesn't have anything in the sense of like the PASM. It doesn't have anything else. It just basically has PCM, and it's the Cayman S model. So literally the only button, the way that I compare the Porsches and the way that I look at them is how many buttons you got in the middle. I've got one button for my wing, and that's it. So it's a bit disappointing, but it's the best way, because ultimately I'm going to have less faults. So this was listed at $5,000, and I'm not joking. I put a $6,000 bid in straight away, because I was like, I was looking at spending about $6,000 on this S2000. So I put $6,000 in straight away, and I was the winner. I was the highest bidder up until the last day, and then all of a sudden the bids started going a little bit mental. So I paid $6,800 in the end. So it went for a lot more than what. But
when it was listed for sale, it wasn't for sale because it had any serious issues with it.
It was listed for sale as a one owner. So when I say a one owner, I am the second owner of the car.
Wow. A
one owner, full Porsche service history, with 145,000 miles on. And the chap that had owned it supposedly was an old man. And looking from the paperwork, it seems like it was an old chap. And his wife drove it the most of the time. It lived in the country, and it genuinely, it's even down to the point of, my tyres. I don't want to sound funny or anything like that, but they've still got bloody hell. Yeah, they are Bridges. So the Bridgestone Potenzas. Now they aren't the best tyre, but they're a matching tyre all round. This is what I'm saying. It's been genuinely looked after. The catch is it was burning oil. So it was the chap that I bought it from. He took it in a trade against another car. He spent a little bit of money, like basically doing a service and this, that, and the other, and changing oil and looking at seeing if he could fix the oil issue, and they couldn't fix it basically. I think they did a bore score check, and I've done a bore score check from the top end of, like, basically through the spark plug ports. And I think, forgive me, some of the comments might turn around and say that that's not the way to do it. And I think that's not the way to do it. Ultimately, you need to do it from bottom dead center and then look in the chamber, and that's where you can see where the scoring is. But I have looked on this engine down here now. I have looked.
So hang on, which engine's the one on the floor?
Sorry, this is the Porsche engine now. So
okay,
I have
there we
looked
go.
in all 6 cylinders.
Wow, so you've taken it out already. Wow.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. And I'm not even joking when I say this. You've got the original Porsche transmission there, which is bolting in exactly the same place as where it was to bolt to the Boxer engine. So I've got exactly the same drive shaft angle. And then ultimately, if you just look under that, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to make this out, but the body line, I've got the sump and the body line absolutely perfect. And then I've still got around about 30mm of under tray to play with. So it's not, I'm not even joking, it's perfect.
So is the Audi engine already in the Cayman then?
It's in. Just bear with me 2 seconds.
So I must have missed that video on your channel. Is that one you haven't done yet?
No. So I've put the Cayman, I put the engine in, but it's only sat in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is. I'll get to that. I mean, this is why it's taken me so long to get this next lot of videos out, because I've been waiting on the tube bender. So, and obviously with COVID and everything, it's really difficult to get all the parts. But as you can see,
my God! Look at that, man! Look at that.
So it's actually got loads of room. The only thing I've had to do, I have had to bastardize the car, to be honest with you. I've had to cut the lugs off. I've had to cut this one here, the central one, and the one there to mount the original cover off. But I'm going to have to remake the full cover. So I think I'm going to do that out of like a pair specs, just so you can see the engine. I genuinely don't even know, to be honest with you, Max.
That is awesome. So is that a 4.8 litre block in there?
So that's a 4.2 V8 out of an Audi S8 D2. So it's a 20-year-old engine, but these engines in particular, this setup, push 360 brake horsepower. So it's the higher brake horsepower of the models. So I'm being told I can potentially run this at what an R8 would run, which is around about, I think they're around 450, something like that. I should be able to get about 450 out of this, standard.
And you're going to get all that torque at low revs that we don't have.
That's the point, is the torque. Yeah. The torque is going to be the game changer. I mean, everybody that's got a Porsche on the channel, they know how well the drive in the high ends. You know, when you're really up there in the revs, these things absolutely go like. I love these cars. I love the way they handle and I love the way they rev. But the torque is going to be the game changer, because they don't have much torque. There isn't much there, and I feel that is where this is going to make all the difference, I think. So yeah. Do you mind me asking,
like, how many hours of your time have gone into that Cayman?
It's a difficult one to say, Max. That's a difficult one, because I spend so much time in my garage. I literally live in the garage. It sounds really sad. I don't have much of a life outside of working on cars, unfortunately.
We've had a few people here commenting how they love your garage, and they go, all you need is a fridge and some beers and you can spend the whole weekend there.
Do you mean this fridge?
Oh, you've got one? Oh, wow.
It isn't turned on. Admittedly, it isn't turned on. I've turned it off because I don't like wasting power. But yeah, when it's really hot and when I'm working here for long periods, I put beer in here. I've got basically... I'll just give you a quick tour while I'm doing it.
Please do.
While we're on it. So this is it looks really big on camera, but it's not. So this is the end. You're stood at the end of the garage now. So obviously the big garage door at this end, and it's a lot wider than you would expect a single garage, but it's a lot longer as well. It was built by the chap that owned the house, and to be honest with you, it isn't built very well, but I've made it better. So then when I started thinking about YouTube about 15 years ago, knowing that I needed a bigger space to work in, I thought about this. And in my garden, I'm going to look like a right bear with my phone now. So in my garden, I've got that there. Please excuse all of this, but I've got there. That ultimately was just a wasted space. So I ended up putting that on the side, reused the window from the original garage. And that was it. That was where I was like, I've got the space to work now. So I put the extension on. I bought a log burner from a chap in Manchester, came back and fitted that. I have got a few little issues with the roof, but it's been about 10 years now since I did this, so I've got a few little issues with the felt on the top. But otherwise, that is basically the garage. Then I've done a lot of modifications over the years, but we've changed a few things around. At the minute, I've just got all the Porsche parts stored. So I've got the original exhaust and the headers. They're going to be for sale. Well, they are for sale, to be honest. But ultimately there's a lot of stuff under there that I've just hidden away just to keep safe and just try and keep as clean as possible. And then under the cover as well, I don't know if you can actually make that out. It's really difficult. But that's actually a 19... I'm going to make myself an idiot now. 1972 Formula Ford Palliser. So it's a 2-litre Pinto Formula Ford car, and it was genuinely it's like a race-winning car as well. So that's what I started on the channel originally. Wow. But then I soon realised that building a classic Formula Ford racing car is a lot more difficult than you want it to be. So trying to use all the correct parts and everything else, it's expensive and difficult to put together, so it's taken a little while to get it all sorted.
But I tell you what, I take my hat off to you for being so hands-on, because you don't sound like someone that's scared of getting their hands dirty. I could never take the engine out of my car, I'll tell you that.
To be honest, if I'm honest, Max, and I'm completely honest with all your viewers now, I've never done it before. I've genuinely never done it before. I suppose it's just one of those things. Right, so let's put it this way. I bought my Porsche, and I don't know if anybody knows, but in Hull, I live up in Hull. If there's any UK viewers here, but Porsche have just opened a dealership in Hull. So they used to have one years ago. I remember very well. And then obviously they've not been one for years. There's not been much money in Hull and everything else. There's a lot more money coming into Hull, so they've obviously started expanding and developing. Porsche Centre Hull came about, and I bought my Porsche a week after they opened. I got my Porsche a week after. I bought this Porsche a week after they opened. So I rang them up, bearing in mind I knew the text there and this, that, and the other, and I got a price to give me a service and a boroscope check. So basically, is it an 111-point check? I think the Porsche guys call it. Yeah. 111-point check. So it was going to give me a 111-point check and a boroscope check. I think that was £130 he was charging me. And then the service, but he didn't give me a price on the service. So the service was a full service and a brake fluid change. I think the price was £800 and something plus VAT.
I was going to say something.
Yeah, about £800 and something plus VAT. I think it was. And genuinely, I was supposed to be getting a deal on that. I was supposed to be getting a good deal, and obviously there can't be a deal. And I've always had this thing about, I'm not afraid to work on something. If something's going to cost me way too much money, I will look at a way of working on it and see if I can do it and save myself a boatload of money. I will do it.
And I've got to say, Jace, it really helps that you worked for a firm that makes those ramps in the background.
I tell you what, that has been the blessing. As everybody said to me, it's the wrong lift. It's not what you need. You need to do this. Don't bother doing that. You can do it on the floor. But because I'm trying to do it on my own, and I spend a lot of time on my own working on the car, that thing has just made all the difference, because it's safe to work under there. I can be lifting the car up, I can have it up in the air, I can be measuring pipe out and everything else. It's been a blessing. I'm going to try and buy it. I'm going to try and sell my Porsche engine and see if the Porsche funds, the engine funds, can hopefully buy that. But they are around that's the 4-ton, so I think they're about $3,000, in all honesty, brand new.
I mean, the US guys have these thing called quick jacks, but that seems a lot more sturdy than a quick jack. To be honest with you, there've been many suggestions from the guys in the States about these quick jacks, and I think in the UK we might have an issue with health and safety on the quick jacks. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I can't find any UK companies that supply these quick jacks. Do you know what? I've seen the Beers for Bill use them. I love and Goon Squad. I think Goon Squad use them. They're absolutely fantastic. You literally just slide them under each side and you just lift it up. They don't lift it high enough for me in that sense, but they are brilliant for just lifting the car up quickly. Do you mind if we can maybe disconnect your phone and have a look at the little the jack in a bit more detail then? Because I know the quick jacks lock in place, but this looks a hell of a lot more sturdy.
So what this is, if I basically explain, you've got different variations of lifts that you can buy, and this is classed as a mid-rise scissor lift. So you can get a full-rise scissor lift that will ultimately, more than likely, recess into the ground and lift the car up to a full height that you would normally work on it. But it would pretty much sit as it does there, if that makes sense. Now, this one is a specialist. I don't want to say a specialist lift. It's more of a body shop lift. So the idea behind this is that you drive them in, you lift it up a metre, and you can basically start taking body panels off, bumpers off, wheels off. You can get into the under trays and stuff like that. So you can sort of work on a car from a body shop point of view without basically going to the extent of having a 2-post lift taking up all the room and everything else. They're a really, really good compact lift, and the absolute beautiful thing about all of this is, obviously, as you can imagine, I'm in the UK and I've not got 3-phase. There are 240 supplies, so it's literally just plugged in off my mains. It's got these little pieces of kit. I've got all the wiring and all the hoses just running around out the side, and then it's just underneath. I haven't bolted it down, admittedly, guys, but literally just got all the hoses that run round. And then if I can't take it up the meter, unfortunately, but if I just lift it up for you, it's absolutely brilliant. Do you know, I would recommend. Sorry, I've just got to watch the top of the car as well. I've got my light. I can't go up too high. So I would recommend, honestly, if somebody's looking for a serious lift, a decent lift, I would recommend these all day long to bolt into your garage, because they are literally, you bolt it in, you drive on. I mean, I've taken these ramps off of this side just to make it a little bit easier. But you do have these folding ramps here, as you can see. So they're genuinely, Max, if you're looking for a lift and you're looking for something that you can work on in your garage, I would recommend these all day long.
There's only one problem. I don't have a garage, but if I did have one, that's something I'd love. That's an amazing bit of kit.
You know, that's actually something that stops me from doing my YouTube channel is ultimately having the space to work it. I knew I wasn't ever going to be really that good at vlogging, so like going out and about and doing things in my car all day long wasn't going to be the way that I was going to get into YouTube. But the garage is definitely a blessing, I'm not going to lie. So it's taken some time to get here, but yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. But that thing, honestly, is a blessing. It's a huge blessing.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a promise to you live on TV, as it were. Like, I think Hull's probably about 500-600 miles away from me. I'll have to look it up. But once you've got that engine running in that car, I want to come visit you, okay? And I want to come see what you've done with it.
Well, to be honest with you, Matt, I thought I'd take the opportunity while we're on the live stream. I wanted to ask, like, because I have a feeling that everybody's going to be Cayman biased in this chat. But you know, genuinely, what are people's thoughts on a 911 to a Cayman? You know, when I was younger, I wanted a 911. Since I've got older, and as much as I probably would go, I would probably still would go and buy like a 911 GT3 RS, because that's my ultimate car, or a GT2. Now they've brought them out, but the GT3 would be my ultimate car in the green. But again, like as I've got older, and obviously even looking back, you know, back years and years and years, I always wanted the Cayman. I always looked at the Cayman being the better car. And now they've launched this GT4 that is ultimately a 4-litre engine that is so quick. You know, why would you want to go to a 911 rear engine car? You know, it's sort of a big question for me is what do people think of them, and what are people's thoughts?
Yeah. Well, let us know in the comments. And I know we've got Rob, who's a subscriber here. He used to have a 981 GT4, and he wrote the car off, and he got a 911 GT3. But he did say when you have that much power in a car, it's game over so quickly unless you want to go to jail, because you'll do 0 to 100. 0 to 60 is 3 point whatever, and before you know it, you're doing 100, and then you're going to get locked up. So he was saying he can go through the gears on his GT4. The GT4 sounded better. I'm not sure what the 4.2 litre in that block in that car sounds like, but it's a tricky one. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I first got into I want to get a Porsche. I would love, and maybe your car's going in that right direction, I'd love a GT4 because the suspension's better than the normal cars, but they've also got a little bit more power. I think I'm not saying anything new here, but the ultimate car for most of us here is a Cayman with a bit more power. I mean, that's got to be what you're building there.
Isn't it funny that we sat talking, you know, about a Porsche that I'm putting a little bit more power in? I mean, this car here is going to have 70 more horsepower than a standard Cayman S. So forgive me, I believe there was some of the models that were around about 290, and then some were 295 horsepower. But this, as a standard engine, runs 360. So I'm at least looking at 65, 70 horsepower more. I mean, over the standard engine, I appreciate it's probably not running that now, but the idea behind it is I've got 70 more horsepower, which is a lot anyway. And then I've got all that torque. So in theory, the way that I look at it is I'm building a mini supercar. You know, it's a mid-engine. It's 4.2. It's a V8. It's a proper engine. It's a mini supercar, and it's got that bit more power. There's a massive worry, and some people have said about the weight of the engine. But quite honestly, guys, I'm just going to say it now that I can't obviously lift the engines. But what I've done is when I've had both engines off the engine crane, they seem very similar in weight. Now, obviously, there's definitely a bit more weight there with the V8, but realistically, the position that I've got it's pretty much gone exactly where it was. So it's central in the sense of where it was. I've got a little bit more weight, but I think I'm going to be able to adjust that on the damping and on the rebound and everything and the stiffness of my suspension. So I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. I think it's just going to make difference in a good way, in a very good way. I hope.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I had a really funny comment for Chris Stevens. I haven't seen the name before. He basically put a great comment saying he regrets converting his garage into a kitchen to keep the wife happy because he can see what you've got there.
I'm single. I don't need to worry about that. I really don't.
Well, believe it or not, so I mean, the house that I live in is a 1930s house, and this used to be the garage. And in the UK, the garage are really narrow, so like a Morris Minor, which is a very narrow old car could fit. So we turned this garage into a little room, and that's where I'm sitting right now. That's why I have no garage.
Yeah, there's so many people that do it, and it's just literally to get more space, more living space. I could never do that. I mean, to be honest, I moved out of this house because I was adamant I was never going to move back into this house after a complicated relationship and everything else. I was adamant I was never going to move back into this house. So I moved into a townhouse apartment, if you want to call it that. It was actually above a shop, but the entrance to the apartment was from the rear. But I had the full porch, so basically, downstairs entrance. But you walked into my apartment, I had this full porch area, and then you stared up to the apartment where it was a one bedroom apartment. But I had this all downstairs area. It was absolutely fantastic. So I decided to use it as a garage, and I decided to buy an old Yamaha XVS Dragstar. It was an old rusty thing off my auntie. I bought it ridiculously cheap. I spent about 600 quid taking it apart, repainting it, and I turned it into a bobber. And I sold it to a policeman who lived in the Isle of Man. He came all the way over from the Isle of Man, saw that I'd listed it. He didn't argue on the price, and I made a £4,000 profit. £4,000 profit on the bike. Wow. I couldn't believe it. So quite honestly, I was going to start going into rebuilding bikes on my channel as well. I wanted to do another bobber. I wanted to do another Dragstar, but do it differently to the way that I did it. But I felt that was going down the same route. So I'd like to try and do a bike on the channel, but it's sort of waste. It sounds really, really bad now, because what I don't want to do, as much as I love working on my Porsche, this is a labour of love. There's no doubt about it. But if I continue the channel, I've got to continue building things at the end of the day. So there's things that I would love to do and I really want to do. But the other thing that you've got to really consider, especially doing the YouTube, is it going to have a cost-effective balance? Is it going to balance itself out?
Well, that's a really tricky thing, because I tell you what,
if you're going to take YouTube seriously, if you're going to take it seriously, are you going to spend? I mean, like, there's a channel that's been advertising itself on Facebook for a while now. It's my brother that actually brought me to the attention of it. I think they're called Anarchy Garage, and it turns out that I think he's a Snap-on dealer. I'm not sure, but anyway, he's been advertising himself on Facebook for quite some time, and I just found that the way that he sort of tried to boost his channel is basically putting up little clips on Facebook and say, come to my YouTube channel. This is how this is what we're going to be doing. He uploaded his first video, and he went from taking delivery of this crash damaged E63 estate, stripping it down, taking the front drivetrain out, rear drivetrain out, everything, stripping the complete car and putting it into a 1960s Mustang in one video. And I'm like to myself, look, you've literally just uploaded probably around about 6 months worth of content in one video. And for me, that just doesn't seem cost effective, because ultimately they're doing it from a business perspective. These guys have set it up from a business point of view. And I look at it and think, well, you've blown so much money on one video, and you've only got 1,000 views on it. And it just, in my head, if I'm going to continue doing the YouTube, which I genuinely do want to do, you've got to do it right. And I think
maybe you've got the potential. Sorry, I was going to say you've probably got the potential to be a professional YouTuber, because I've literally spent thousands on like computers, software licenses, even the software we're using right now. I have to pay like a monthly fee, mics, cameras. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I realised that I like doing this. I love meeting the people that I meet, but trust me, I think on these you need to get over 1,000 subscribers before you get ad revenue, and then I think I get like about $2 to $4 a week, which is not even going to go anywhere. So it's just, I do this so because I get to reach out to people I enjoy. I do these live streams. It keeps me sane, because I guess if I didn't have this channel, lockdown's been 3 months in, maybe I'd have to be paying £100 an hour to see a psychotherapist for counselling or something. So the way I see it, you guys in this channel keeps me sane.
Well, I think halfway through the lockdown, I ended up there's a channel that I watch called Adam LZ. He does a lot of drifting. He's a US guy. Really, really good channel. He's been doing it for many, many years, and he set everybody a challenge to do a burnout challenge. So it was a stay-at-home burnout. So in my infinite wisdom, I went and made a video and doing a burnout challenge. And I've ruined a 200 quid tyre. I don't even think I got like 200 views. I didn't even get entered into the competition. They didn't even see my video. So I was like, yeah, never mind. But it's all in good fun. The lockdowns really caused everybody a lot of issues. And
I'll tell you what, Jace, if you want to get your channel a bit more kind of like tractions, maybe in the US, we've got a guy who's called Nate on this channel, and he's always up for being dialed in. Yeah, Nate, he's always up. So Nate, if you're watching now, get ready on Skype. We're gonna call you in. We haven't quite finished here, but we're gonna call you in. We want to know what you think about, because obviously Jace had some questions for Cayman viewers out there. What do you think about the car, the 911, put the engine in? Nate, we want to hear your feedback. We'll get you on in a bit. Get ready. Get changed out your pajamas, mate.
What time is it over there?
It's about 4 o'clock now, so it should be alright.
Come on, get out your jammies. Get out your jammies.
Hey, listen, you can all keep up to date with Jace's challenge on JaseWilks. So that is literally the name of his channel. So I'm going to be watching it as well. See how you go with this build.
Well, I'm genuinely I don't want to rush it. And this is ultimately why I probably need to apologise to a few people, because I've not uploaded in 2 weeks. So I don't want to rush it, but I don't want to be uploading content that's pointless, if that makes sense. My content's not great. I'm still learning a lot, and ultimately, every video that I upload, I learn something new. So I'm not going to just put out content for the sake of it, and I think that's my point. So this last few weeks, it's taken me a fair lot of time to try and sort out steel. Steel suppliers have not been able to get the steel to me, and then the steel suppliers have not been able to get it to the suppliers who would supply me, and then the suppliers have not been able to get the steel to me, if that makes sense. Getting the clutch and flywheel. The flywheel wasn't too bad. The clutch was a lot more of a pain. I've been trying to sort out little niggly bits like crankshaft position sensors and stuff, because it's all these stupid stuff that you need to address. It's just taken some time. So quite honestly, I do apologise for probably not uploading quicker than I should be, but I just don't want to rush it. So I do apologise, but for anybody that does want to follow the build, I'd really appreciate if you do subscribe. I mean, like I say, I'm not for 1 minute. I don't think for a minute that YouTube is going to be the be all and end all. For anybody that's watching the videos that is taking a genuine interest into the Cayman build and how it's going about now and doing things, and if it is interesting to the point where you may even want to consider it, there is aspects of this build that I am going to hopefully be able to provide to the general public once I've done. I mean, not for 1 minute. I'm not expecting to be able to sell 1 million subframes, but I'm going to basically make a jig up for the subframe. And if anybody wants to do the engine swap, I'm going to be able to supply the subframe for them. I've got to think about a way of making a living in something that I ultimately enjoy doing. And as much as I love doing the YouTube, I've got to try and think of something else. And this whole Cayman build, like I say, back to the Black Cayman, this has been a brainchild of mine to do this engine swap, and then hopefully to be able to provide the parts to do it. But not only that, it's the knowledge as well. It's not so much supplying the subframes and stuff. I don't know if you've watched one of my videos, but when I first started the Cayman build, I basically cardboarded a new wing to the rear of the car. and I want to design a new wing that works off the original mechanics of the original mechanism. So I'm going to try and design that and see if I can supply that to the general public.
But I tell you what, one thing to be careful of is that I wanted to get the original Porsche Aero kit onto my Cayman, which was an option when my car was new. And when I read the fine print, because I wanted to get the spoiler, fix the spoiler at the back, it actually said you cannot buy the spoiler and fit it without the front splitter because you'll upset the aerodynamics. So it made me think that there are people out there that will buy a wing on the back of their Cayman without changing the front. Yeah. But the official Porsche manual was like, don't do that because you need to make sure the car's balanced.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many aspects of the aero that I want to address. The diffuser is one of them. So front splitter. Oh no, not even a splitter. It needs a diffuser. So I know that with regard to the aerodynamics of a Porsche, as much as they're beautiful they handle really well. I know that they're really light on the front end. And what happens is basically the air catches up in the air in the inner arches, in between the wheel and the inner arch, if that makes sense. And it creates it basically lifts the front end of the car up. So you need something to try and pull that down. So I do want to look at a diffuser, a new diffuser, front splitter, rear diffuser, and then a rear spoiler as well. But the problem with that is, Max, is to make all of that work because it's quite expensive. So what I want to try and do is focus on the engine swap first. I want to make the car look a standard road car. It's going to look very standard from the outside. I may well put a duckbill spoiler on because I really like the duckbills on. I think they look really good. And then that'll ultimately lead into doing the new rear wing. But what I want to do is I want to do a nice clean road car first, and then the next stage will be to take it up and do the wing, the rear diffuser, the front splitter, and go all bells and whistles. Because
it sounds like you've got a plan there. Yeah.
Depending if I use that car or if I can buy another one, and I'm not saying for 1 minute I've got the money to go and buy another one, but if I ever can buy another one and do the same thing again, I would turn that one into the track car, because as much as I would love to track that, I wouldn't want to just destroy it. So it's a tough one, but yeah, I'd love to be able to do a track version.
Can I ask you a question?
GT4, basically a GT4. I want to make my own GT4 because I can't afford one.
Well, join the club. I mean, I'd love a GT4. I mean, I don't hide that as a secret. I would love a 981 GT4.
Oh,
even the 718 GT. I was only watching a video today about the 718 Spider and how awesome that car is. But do you know what I'm asking? It's a 4.2 litre block, but you mentioned power figures topping 500 plus. So how are you going to get that much power out of the engine? Is that like an engine remap, or are you going to?
Well, yeah. So. Forgive me, I'm no engine expert, so I'm probably going to get it corrected in the comments now. I was under the impression that I would need to build the engine in some form to get that sort of horsepower, but I'm being told it's a standard that push 360. So I'm being told I should be able to get between 420 and 450 comfortably off a remap. So basically, what I'm saying is in theory, I should be able to do exhaust, which I'm going to do. It's going to have sports cats and a full. Basically, there's not going to be much exhaust. Let's put it that way. So there's not going to be much exhaust. It's going to have sports cats. So obviously, it's everything legal. But then air intake and then the remap. I'm being told that you can comfortably push that to a 420 to 450. That's what I'm being told. But this is ultimately where I sort of come back to. Well, if I can, and it runs 360 to 400 as a standard, which I'll be happy with. At 400 brake horsepower, it's 100 more than standard anyway. If that's the case, I'll live with that, and then I'll build the motor. I'll basically take it back out and rebuild the motor. So my uncle Phil is he's not even an engine specialist. He's just one of the best mechanics I know. He's the same as me. He's not afraid to do anything. So I was speaking to him about the engine, and he was like, "It's no problem at all. We can get all the bits and pieces. I can get everything sorted, and if that's the case, then we might be building the motor eventually." But that's where I'll sort of take it to the GT4 level with a wing and everything else. Wow. Sorry, I've had too many.
Go for it.
I've had too many glasses.
What I'm going to do, is there anything else that you want to sort of we've gone over the hour, so apologies for that. But is there anything else that you want to sort of touch upon before I try and bring in Nate into this channel? Because he was going on a few things about aerodynamics. I think it'd be interesting to hear what he says.
Absolutely, let's go.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, this is always a bit of a play by ear, all doing live. I want to try and dial Nate. You have to explain to us why you've got a Mercedes baseball cap on, because I haven't heard you talk about Wilkes so far.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, this is going to be so easy. This is going to be so easy.
Go on then.
Right, you ready? So, yeah. I don't know I don't know how much you're going to be able to see, but can you work out what base?
Where have you got? Oh, there you go. I can see you.
Can you work out what baseball cap it is?
Is a little smiley face. Oh, Formula One. What is that?
Does the picture? Can you see it? I don't know if you can. I don't know if my camera's going to twist now, Max.
Oh, hang on. We got Nate on here. What's going on? Oh yeah, your camera's twisted. Your camera's twisted. There we go.
So,
hi, gentlemen.
The Mercedes baseball cap is Mercedes Formula One team.
Oh, awesome!
So it would be McLaren. It would be McLaren.
Yeah.
If Lewis Hamilton still drove for McLaren, but he doesn't. So
gotcha.
It's Mercedes. Sorry.
No worries.
It's not that I love Mercedes. I don't really, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, listen, I'm just trying to get us all on screen at the same time. There we go. We've got it. So,
are we all
mate,
on?
Yeah, we're all on. So,
how are you doing?
Hi, Jace. Hi, Max. How are you?
Okay, so listen, I've got to do the little framing thing. So, Jace, you need to go a little bit. Can you see yourself? You need to just go a little bit to your right. There we go. Nate, a little bit to the left. There you go. We're all in the centre. There you go. You can see yourself. I'll let you do it. So, I wanted to say, Nate, while Jace was talking to us about his fantastic engine swap, and we were talking about aerodynamics, you had some great things to say. This is officially the last kind of live stream that we do, but let's not go into that whole last thing because we did that 2 weeks ago. Let us know what you think. What do you think? Yeah, what do you think about Jace's engine rebuild, man?
I think it's a wonderful thing. I've looked at several of your videos, Jace. I haven't seen a lot of progress, but you explain why. I really like the fact that you've kind of kept it in the Volkswagen, Porsche, Audi group family of engines. I think you did that purposefully.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I really like the fact that you did that. LS swaps are great, but it's kind of not in the family. So it's kind of a love or a hate thing, whether you approve of that or not. So, I really, really like the idea and the spirit of where you're going. I really do.
Thank you. No, I mean, I completely agree. I've watched a fair few videos of is it Renegade hybrids?
Yes.
Over in the States who do the LS swaps on them. I genuinely, they sound amazing, and I love an LS engine. I mean, there will be a point in time that I will want to do an LS swap on something. There is no doubt, because I love the sound of them.
Yes.
I just feel, as much as I wanted, there is a route. It is a route I looked at, but the cost of the engine was quite substantial, to be fair. So that was another thing that factored me, that sort of drove me down the route of going down to the Audi, because the Audi engine, it was only £1,300. So I paid 1,300 British pounds for the engine itself. I got the torque converter, but I didn't really need that. I've got all the engine mounts, and I've got the ECU. So I've basically got everything to work the engine. So 1,300 quid compared to a £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 rebuild. Bearing in mind that there's a company in the UK that you basically can send it to them in stages, and at the minimum it was going to cost me £2,500 to repair or do a repair to the engine, but then ultimately it was going to cost another £1,500 to £1,700 at least in small parts that would just need on top of that. So it was a tough decision, mate, but ultimately I think keeping it in the family was one of the main things, because it's VAG group, it's Volkswagen, it's Porsche, it's VAG group. So that's the transmission that you see ultimately is an Audi transmission.
That's an Audi trans. Yeah,
it originally came from an Audi.
Audi transmissions in these cars. I think it was built for a diesel application, so you shouldn't have a problem with handling the power or torque either.
Exactly. So it's like it was a really well, to be honest with you, it wasn't a tough decision. I looked at the LSs. The main factor for me, and please don't shoot me, but it was the sound, and the reason for that is, as much as I love the LSs, the LSs deserve a big American muscle car. I would love to build a big American muscle car because they're fascinating me. Ever since being a kid, I love them. But when I was thinking about the Cayman swap, I was thinking it needs to have that refined sound.
I agree.
You know what, Jace? It's really great you're going into this, because I was thinking fuel bills. Having an LS engine in the UK, like, you'd need a second job to pay for the fuel.
It's going to be some expensive fuel prices there. Yeah. Expensive.
Well, I don't even know what this is going to be like. I don't even. To be honest, I don't even care. I don't care.
No, it doesn't matter at this point. I love the spirit of this build. And the fact that I think that block is probably all aluminum as well. So I'm sure whatever weight you're adding it can't be too much more.
No, I don't think it is. To be honest, I'm just about, like I say, I'm sort of giving everybody a bit of an insight because I haven't uploaded a video. So like the clutch and the flywheel is new, that came in this week. And I've been trying to be honest with you, I have started making a video. But the problem is I've been trying to bend up tube for the last 3 days. Now, I haven't been doing it 3 days solid, obviously. I've been working on a stupid little Chinese quad. But what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to bend a piece of tube to see if I can get a perfect angle. And the reason for it is because I'll just get my torch out. Let's see, I'll climb under the car now and give you an insight as to what I'm actually trying to do. So...
You can't get this on any other channel, Max.
I know.
So, what we've got here... Sorry.
Let's get us off screen.
Right, guys, I don't know what you can actually see now.
We're all going off screen. So there we go, yeah. So your coolant hoses aren't going anywhere.
No. So basically, there's a bar going across where the original subframe mount was. So that there I'll replace with a metal bar. Now, the idea would be is that I take the tubing from a central point from there down the side of the engine, and then ultimately just come down the side of this engine point here, because I want to keep power steering and aircon and power steering in. That's a major factor here.
Right.
So I want to keep them in. So I'm going to wrap around the engine, and then ultimately come back up to. Well, in fact, I'll get the part out. So I don't know how many of you have taken your Caymans apart, guys, but I've learned a lot since doing this.
I bet you have.
So there's that there, which is like, oh, sorry, where's it gone? Sorry, I do apologise, guys. So there's that there. Now that basically bolted in from the suspension components from left to right. So it bolted in there, and then obviously on the other side. At the minute, it won't go back in because the engine sits a little bit too low. So I've got to remake that no matter what. So what my intention is that I come off the original, where the metal bar that I've put in the back, in the front, I'll come around with the tubing. I'm more than likely going to have to cut it and weld it now because I just can't get the angle that I need. So I'm going to come round, wrap around the engine above where the subframe sits so it doesn't sit any lower, and then basically come to this point here on these two pickups, put another plate in, bend it in, and then bring the subframe to this point here. So basically, I'm going to give the car a full subframe in a sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
This is just awesome. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's thinking it's a bit Willy Wonka in his chocolate factory. It's kind of like,
absolutely, it's all over the place, guys. I do apologise.
No, I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing how
it is amazing.
Yeah,
it is amazing. If I was doing this would look like a bad erector set. You'd be ready to topple over already.
To be honest with you, it's a little bit awkward because I'm trying to work on my own. So I'm struggling in places, but ultimately I'm getting the end goal. That's the point, is I'm getting towards the end goal. And as much as it's a bit of a faff to get to certain points because of the way that I'm trying to do it, I want to try and do it absolutely bang on first time. So I don't want to spend time, just chuck a subframe in there. One of my mates just said, just weld the subframe and it'll be absolutely fine. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to get it absolutely perfect first time. Like I said to Max earlier, it's like, as much as I would love YouTube to work, if it doesn't, I would love to try and open my own garage or something one day and do specialist work like this.
Right.
So supplying the subframes and bits and pieces is something that I want to look at doing. So if YouTube doesn't work, is ultimately I can supply subframes for people that potentially want to do this. The way that I look at that, guys, and I don't know if you agree with me on this one, but Caymans now, especially like the 06s, like the 987, the 987.1s and stuff, they're coming down to a price now where people, like myself, I can't afford a Porsche. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I shouldn't be able to afford a Porsche. I can't afford to go and buy a new Cayman.
Jason, you are an international YouTube star, okay? And judging by the comments here, somebody put a comment up saying by the end of the night they want you to have 987 subscribers or something. So you never know what's going to happen, okay?
No, you never know.
And we've got Nate here as well. Nate's going to go tell everyone in his neck of the woods about your car build.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, by the way, Nate, while you're here, yours has been dispatched in the post. I don't know if you can see this. This is the Max REVS stickers, okay? So we are going official now. Max REVS has got stickers, okay? So there we go. They are front adhesive, and they're gonna. One's already. It's over here. I'm not going to show it to you because it's got the addresses on the front. But there you go.
Well, it's about damn time, Max.
There you go. So Jace, well, listen, I'm about 3 years down the road, and I've only got round to stickers now. So you've been going less than a year, that you said. So there's a good tip from Nate: get some stickers set up.
Get some stickers, yeah.
We're all gonna have them on our car. Jason's gonna have them on his when it's done. We're all gonna have them.
Absolutely. Well, to be fair, I mean, like I think you're talking about meeting up afterwards when I get the car done. One of my main goals is I want to try and arrange a trip. So, and I appreciate, Nate, it's not going to apply unless you can get your ass over here to the UK with your car.
I'm going to give it a shot.
You need your car. Well, you don't need your car necessarily, but I want to try and arrange a trip to the Nürburgring. It's a revenge trip for me. Ultimately, I've been twice now. I went in the Porsche. I couldn't go around. I then went I went 2 years later in my brother's car. I went around the Nürburgring in my friend's GTR. Most scariest thing I've ever done. But ultimately, I'd love to try and arrange a trip. So if anybody is up for it, genuinely, and that includes obviously you, Max, the question is to you, is I would love to try and arrange a Nürburgring trip at some point. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, I'm not sure. It all depends on how I get on with this. But that is something that I'd love to be able to do, a revenge trip. I need to go around the Nürburgring in the car.
Well, there you go. I would probably start off a little bit more gently and go, let's do a combined track day at a track event somewhere, because Nürburgring you can't control,
good idea.
And it's such a very long track. What is it? It's like so many miles that, like, I think the one thing I like about the few track days I've done is if it's like a 2 or 3 mile track, you kind of get a feel for it. So as the laps build up, you get more confidence. One lap of the Nürburgring is like, the
Nürburgring's different. It's scary. You don't remember the corners. Yeah. Before I go tonight, if anybody's still here, but I am going to show you my simulator that I've finalised.
So let's do that. Let's do that. So you've built some kind of driving simulator, yeah? Okay, yeah, so hang on. There we go. So I'm going to take myself off screen anyway. Nate, it's you and Jace, man. There you go. You know what? I'm going to feel like this is not even my channel now. You know what they say? great people kind of like just, mastermind other people to do all the work for them. So go out there and make content, guys.
Do you know what I am? I'm sort of hoping and praying that my battery is not going to die while I'm doing this.
That's how Oprah did it, Max.
I know.
Right, so basically, if I explain a little bit, what I did was when I bought my Porsche and when I was all getting sorted, I bought a Logitech steering wheel to click onto my Xbox. I did a video, but it wasn't the purpose of the video. The purpose of the video was to tell everybody that was buying a Porsche to potentially do an Audi swap in it. So I bought this Logitech and I did all this setup and everything else. It was absolutely fantastic, but on an Xbox, it wasn't very realistic. I was driving like Forza Horizon and Forza 5 and stuff, and it wasn't very realistic. Now, I do apologise if this is too geeky and too childish for anybody, but I'm a proper kid. So I've always loved driving simulators. Now, obviously, I did the Logitech and I did the Xbox and everything else, and it was absolutely fantastic, but it just wasn't realistic enough. Now, since I've been in lockdown, bearing in mind, there's been a lot of racing. There's a lot of racing drivers going on to iRacing and doing a lot of professional driving stints races on this iRacing. So I'm like, that's got to be the place I need to be on. So, bearing in mind I'm trying to build a Porsche and I didn't want to spend much money, simulators can cost like thousands, absolute thousands.
Oh yeah.
It was ridiculous. Now, I wasn't looking at a motion sim. That wasn't something that I was going to do. But ultimately, I just wanted a box standard simulator, PC set up because I could run iRacing. The screen set up, but I couldn't decide which screens because obviously you can go with 3 screens and this, that, and the other. But what I've done is for £908 all in. Bearing in mind that doesn't include my Recaro seat because I inherited that. But £908, not including all my wood as well because my wood's from the garage.
Come on, Jason, show us. We can't see it. Oh my God, is that it?
Wow.
Is that a real car chair?
Wow.
So I've got a Recaro seat. I think that's out of a Ford Focus. I could be wrong. I've got my original Recaro chair, bolted onto an OSB board and 2 before. I got my friend to build a PC for £270. I've plugged in my own keyboard and everything to it. I got the Logitech G920 for the Xbox One with the gear shifter, the manual gear shifter. And then the most expensive bit was my screen. And that was a £440 MSI screen, but it's the curved. It's a ultra-wide 34-inch curve. And I tell you what, to be honest with you, my problem is, guys, I want to show you, but my issue is my internet runs. I'm waiting for the telephone provider to come and put internet in my home. So my internet runs off my phone at the minute, and I need to connect to the internet to start that up. And I am desperate to show you it, but I've just realised I can't do it. I have basically got.
That looks legit. You don't have to show us. That looks legit.
I'm not joking you, right? I've plugged that in. Compared to the Xbox, it is so realistic. It is so scarily realistic. It's unbelievable. I've got bear in mind, iRacing's not cheap, so it's like a monthly subscription or yearly subscription. And then to buy the tracks, if you want like the Nürburgring, it cost me $14.
So Jason, I have one question for you. Like, in terms of like where you're living at the moment, you've got a massive double garage full of your toys. You have a room dedicated to a racing simulator. Like, what?
I know
the
where you're going, man.
Yeah. How do you get away with this?
I'm single.
There we go.
Very much single. Yeah, to be honest,
the ultimate man cave.
Yeah, I think that's it. To be honest, if I had a girlfriend and I didn't have the space, that would more than likely end up in the garage. Just because in that side of the garage where I would sit. But like I say, the workshop is taking up so much space, or the work-wise is taking up so much space that ultimately just can't go there. So luckily I'm single and I've got a spare room. Just to explain, just anybody that doesn't know, but this is where my YouTube channel genuinely started, on these stairs. I'm not joking, right here. Now, if I just explain quickly, don't know if you can see that. So basically, I've got carpet in my hallway, I've got a piece of underlay, and then I've got carpet in my bedroom, yeah? So basically, this is just a really funny story. So I've had this house, or I should say my mum and dad bought this house years ago when I was engaged to a previous a fiance. 15 years ago, should I say. 15, 16 years ago, they bought this house. And I've lived in it. I've moved out. I've moved back in. I've moved out. I've rented it out to my mum and dad. I've done everything. I've looked after the house this whole time. I managed to buy it. When I managed to buy it, everything was going through. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to open up. I'm going to take out. So that wall there is basically what goes into my living room. I was like, I want more space. So I was like, right, I'm going to look at opening it up. So I was thinking, right, well, this wall here, this what it isn't. But that wall there, sorry, I'll just turn some lights on. So that was like a big brick alcove bit. So I had to take that down. And then when I took that down and I got it back to this wall here, I'm like, right, okay, so that's brilliant. So like this here is like where the wall ended. But then when I got the plaster off down here, I realised that my downstairs wall wasn't in the same fucking place. So my wall upstairs was about a 1.5 foot off where it should have been. Wow. So I had to basically start. I've rebuilt my own house. I've rebuilt my house.
Wow.
Sorry, Jace. We've got a few comments from people that have been drinking, asking me, "Are we doing home DIY or not?" So
yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah. This is awesome. So listen, I'm so glad we've managed to feature you here on this channel. Nate, we've brought you on here because this is basically the final episode so far. It's been a good run. Well, as in, whenever we get someone else to feature, we will feature them. But it's been an awesome run so far. So, like, I love the fact how Jace and Joe saved us from the 10th episode. We've seen the project work that Jace has got going on. So, for all you guys that want to keep on track with what Jace is doing, JaseWilks, that's his YouTube channel. And now, Nate, I'm going to put you up on the spot now. You're going to give us a nice roundup to if this is the last live stream, and I've got no one else to feature next week, by the way. I'd like you,
Nate. We're going to have to make him just do more live streams.
So Nate's been pretty much consistent. Like, I mean, the guys I remember, I know all you guys here, and I can see them all here on the comments now. I want you to wrap us up. Like, you know, lockdown is slowly easing. We're slowly coming out of it. How have you gone through lockdown, Nate? And how has YouTube kind of helped you get through it? And basically, over to you, mate. This is your time to shine, man.
Hey, this channel has been a godsend. It's nothing more that I like talking about more than cars, particularly Porsche content. It's the vehicle I own. I just love these cars, and this has saved me from a 3-4 months of boredom. To be perfectly honest, it's a labor of love. It's a hobby. It's talking to gentlemen of like mind. It's redeeming. It's redeeming. I mean, I can't put it in terms any better than that. It's been very, very helpful, Max.
So Nate, sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to put you under any pressure, but it's not me doing it. It's Kevin, it's Nosh, and it's these guys. They want you to feature and present us a topic next week.
Yes.
Topic.
Yeah. So, but Bertie said that this is my church. We've got Rich's Cars that says it's like a virtual pub talking about cars. We've got Stephen from California. So, like, no pressure, mate. No pressure.
Yeah,
mate.
Come on. That's
good. Wow. You know what? I think the topic should be actually 9/11 based. We touched on it earlier in this live stream. I think the topic should be 9/11 based. I mean, we talk about the Cayman and Boxster a lot here.
Yeah.
And we should talk about some of the stigmas of maybe not buying a 911, because there's a lot of stigma that goes along with that. There's a lot of stigma attached, be it right or wrong. A lot of 911 guys look down their nose at us guys, and
Do you know what, Nate? Do you know what it is, Nate? Do you know what it is, Nate? I honestly, the way that I sort of look at that, and in a lot of cases, a lot of them just have a lot of money and they don't really care, and they will look down the nose at someone who owns a Cayman. But at the same time, genuinely, I would happily drive my Cayman to a car show, and with someone who was 911, if they tried to tell me that my Cayman was not as good as his 911. Honestly, I would have the best time of my life schooling him, because genuinely, the Cayman is a better car. It's hands down. There's no doubt about it.
There are people on this channel there are people on this channel that I know that have had 911 turbos, the S, the Carrera S, and the Turbo, but they have a GT4 at the moment because that's what they want. So I think it's
if you genuinely want a driver's car. A driver's car, a proper driver's car, not a tootling around showing your mates and posing and with your watch and everything else. That's not a driver's car. And don't get me wrong, 911s are a driver's car. But
absolutely.
If you genuinely want like the ultimate handling, it's the Cayman. It's got to be the Cayman. Even if you go to a Boxster, the handling on a Boxster compared to a 911 is so good because it's just the positioning, it's just that balance.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, this is coming from a guy who's going to buy a 911. I'm going to
exactly.
buy a 911.
My dream car is 911 GT3. I'm not going to stop there. I want the GT4. I mean, I know that the GT4 is the better car, and I would have the GT4 before the GT3. But a GT3 in bright green is my dream car, and genuinely, it is. I would love one. I'm not knocking them, but I know for a fact that Porsche made the error. They corrected the error with the Boxster and the Cayman, and ultimately that car is now coming into its own. With that GT4, with that 4-litre, it's quick, and if not quicker, it's as quick as the 911.
I generally know when a guy straight away tells me that a 911 is better than a Cayman. I know almost straight away he has more money than brains.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's generally the way it goes. And I don't talk to the guy very long.
Nate. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think a 911 is better than a Cayman.
Well played, Max. Well played. But I know you have more brains than money, Max.
911 is better.
Okay, so listen. This is what we're going to do. So next week we're going to come here. We're going to talk about 911s, Caymans, and listen. I'm putting you under pressure because the same people that put you under the spotlight, Nate, I want to put them under a bit of pressure too. So Kevin, Rich Fixes Cars, Nosh, we're all going to come on. I'm going to do some questions, like 5 or 6 questions, and we're going to discuss, those kind of questions. So anyone that's watching this, send me an email at maxrevscars@gmail.com. We'll test out the Skype link and we'll do some kind of like panel-based Q&A type thing, and it'll all be fun. It'll all be a laugh. And Nate is only going to do this if you guys do this as well, because that's too much pressure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, So it's all or nothing on this channel. If we all don't do it, then I'm sorry, Nate's not going to do it, and I'm speaking on your behalf, Nate. So let's see if we can get some crazy stuff going. Like, this is what this channel's about. It's nothing formal, and let's just see if we can get some crazy interaction going where it'll be like we're all sitting in a room, okay? And hopefully we'll get a 911 owner here as well, who's on the channel.
Yeah, do you know? Genuinely, I was just about to say it would be nice that. Right, and what I was just about to say is it'd be nice to have a non-biased 911 owner. So if he's got a Cayman and a 911, that'd be even better. I mean,
that would be ideal. Great idea, Jace.
So MG Drive. So you can join us. I know you're based in Germany. Your kind of icon is a Boxster and a Spider or something, but I'm pretty sure you don't own a Cayman. Yeah, so we'll get you on. Send me an email, and I'll try and put this together in the following week. I actually told my wife, I think we've got some people coming to visit us next Sunday, because I said we won't have a live stream then. But it's all, listen, the community comes first.
You lied to her, Max.
I lied. We all come first. So listen, let's try and put this all together. Nate, Jason, if there's anything else you want to say, now's the time, because I know we've gone over budget and stuff and over time.
No, I've genuinely, I've got to go and try and get the car put together, because I'm a fair weather rider and I don't like riding my bike in the rain. So
okay,
I probably need to crack on with that. But if you want me to join in next weekend, I'll happily join.
There we go.
I'll put in the garage working on my car, but yeah.
I'll try and put some questions.
I want to thank you, Jace, for being here this week. Thank you. This is a wonderful
No. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing the end result. I can't wait. Take your time, please. Take your time. Absolutely. YouTube can wait. Take your time.
Yeah, I think that's it. Make
it worth it.
Yeah, that's it. It's a labour of love. This. It's as much as I'm doing it on a YouTube channel. This is a labour of love. This is costing me a lot of money and everything that I've got. So yeah, I'm taking my time with it. I've got to get it right. I can't afford to make the mistakes. So. Yeah, we'll get there, Nate. We'll definitely get there. But I will hopefully be uploading a video very soon of me at least trying to start this thing. So
I look forward to it, Jason. Always remember, you don't have another half to answer to. So I've actually, I don't know if I've told everyone here, I've purchased the Soul Performance 987 Gen 2 valved exhaust system. Okay, nice. And then so I did that. I paid it all up. I won't get so I think I was 144th in the queue because it's such a big build slot. So I need to wait until my build slot arrives, then it'll get delivered here. And then you have to have this conversation. Obviously, I bought it without speaking to the wife. And then, by the way, I said to my wife, I've ordered an exhaust. And then trying to explain, so my wife's quite logical. She goes, you have a car. Why do you need to put another exhaust on the car?
I'm explaining why they need a handbag. I'm never going to understand
why do you need a pair of shoes?
Yeah.
Come on,
I don't understand why you need a Birkin bag. But, I need to understand.
Yeah. So Nate,
I need an exhaust.
You don't know my other half. Like if you start poking them buttons, you can get some. You can really start touching the hornet's nest. So you kind of like walk carefully. So basically,
it's justifiable, Max. It's justifiable. And when she hears that Soul Performance exhaust, she'll be like, yeah, that's fine.
Well, she doesn't watch this channel, but I said my car was 2009. The exhaust is corroded, and you know what? I need to put a new one on anyway. And an aftermarket one is cheaper than a Porsche one because it's unbranded, which is completely not true.
I've got one for sale here, Max. There's a headache as well.
Oh, there we go. So listen, we're all off topic. Next week, we're going to do a massive live stream. There's going to be at least, say 4 of us, because 4 works quite well visually. If we can get more, we'll get more. Nate, thank you so much. Jason, thank you so much for showing us this live stream. I can't believe you fitted the engine in. You've kind of to do a few tweaks there. Absolutely awesome. Check his channel out, Jace Wilkes. I mean, we had this little chat before we came on, and Jason's like, "Oh, I don't want to plug my channel, blah blah blah." I'm like, "This channel is not about my channel and not your channel." And listen, if you like Caymans, if you like what Jace has got, go check him out and subscribe to his content, because you know what, this is not Shmee or Vehicle Virgins or Doug DeMuro.
And we welcome 911 owners, all kinds of car owners as well, right, Max?
That is true.
Definitely not biased.
Oh yeah,
I think that's the point. Is with regards to that. And like Max just said, I just want to point that out. Is I'm not in competition with anybody. I'm not trying to compete for subscribers and this, that, and the other. My content is my content. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. If you don't, you don't. Unfortunately, I am trying to better the production value to make it more enjoyable to watch. But ultimately, if you don't like the content, you don't like the content. I'm not trying to compete with anybody, and I appreciate what you're doing there, Max, and exactly what you said there.
Well, listen, I've been there.
It's not a case of winning competition. Yeah. I genuinely love the community, and I love the Porsche community, because it genuinely. I don't know. It's weird, but they're in a bit of a clique, and 911 owners to Cayman owners, I get that, but at the end of the day, they're still a Porsche family, and you can still come together at a Porsche meet with a 911 owner and a Cayman owner, and they will get on like best friends because they're going to Porsche. And I think that's the point. It's a community that's well worth being in. And as much as I can't afford to own a Porsche, I've still got one.
That's right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
I can't afford to own one either, and I have one.
Yeah, exactly. You only live once, Nick. You only live once.
So listen, guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put together a comment thread on the community post, and it'll be like talking points for next week. And if anyone can make it, just comment up on there. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. Thanks to you guys for. You know what? When we started out, it was an hour or just about an hour. Now we're almost hitting the 2-hour mark. So 1 hour 42.
You know what? I'm sat here sweating, and I've got anxiety and everything.
But hey, listen, I've got studio lights here. Like I've got my window shut so you can't hear the noise from the neighbours or the windows. So
Max is over there like Anchorman.
Honestly, no. I just want to say before you go, Max. Honestly, I love these live streams. I love what you're doing on the channel. Quite honestly, what you did with that music video was probably the funniest thing that I have seen on YouTube for God knows how long. It was so good, and it was to the point where it was so corny. I could not listen to it. It was just so good. So I genuinely, I love what you're doing. It's fantastic, and I hope you keep these live streams.
Oh, thanks, mate. Well, you've got a problem when you actually pay someone to sing some lyrics that you've come up with, and then the guy said to me, "How shall I sing it?" And I go, "Oh, I don't know. Can you just do the best you can?"
Good effort. It was a good effort. I'll give him that.
There you go.
There are worse vices, Max. There are worse vices.
Yeah, well said. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoying Life in Cars with Max. And here's to one more. 13's an unlucky number. It'll be 13 next week. So maybe we're going to have to do 2 more and make it 14. We'll see how it goes.
That's an old wives' tale. I don't believe that. 13's going to be lucky here.
No. Just agree in it. You get the 14.
There we go.
Exactly.
So hopefully we see everybody next week. Enjoying Life in Cars with Max. Thank you guys for joining us. And I'm going to click the button now and we'll see how it goes. So thanks again, guys. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Nate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
Everyone.
All right.
Thank you.